Salute, salute, salute. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Bow. Nocturnal thoughts, man. Real quick video, then I'm gonna get out the way. So, you know, I was asked my opinions before and after about Tszyu and what I thought about him against Jamal Charlo post the fight with Brian Mendoza. So, I was obliged to share my thoughts with a specific subscriber. He wanted to know what I thought about the performance of Tszyu, the son of the great Tszyu, right? From the land down under. The performance of Tszyu, there's nothing flashy about his style. He gets the job done. Brian Mendoza is a tough fighter, tough opponent, and I felt like in that fight, I would see more from Tszyu in comparison to how fast he knocked out Campo. You know what I'm saying? And his fight against Tony Harrison, I thought Tony Harrison, his Tony Harrison sometimes he can have great performances, and then he can have lackluster performance, and then he was kind of fluctuating. Like his performance against Charlo when he won was a better performance from Tony Harrison, but then he had some setbacks. He had some things in his life that kind of set him back, plus time and a lot of other factors. So when he went into the fight with Tszyu, I just didn't know what to expect from Tony Harrison. As far as, his chin, he had been knocked out a couple of times. So this fight with Brian Mendoza, to me, was a better gauge for me to look at the more than just the intangibles of Tszyu, like his grit, his IQ, his punch selection, his ring generalship, overall his just boxing performance. And I'm not going to say that I wasn't impressed, because I was impressed with the game plan that he had against a guy like Brian Mendoza. He was like the first 3 rounds filling out process. After the 4th round, I'm going to start to apply more pressure and start to take over the fight. There was no knockouts. There was no knockdowns. Brian Mendoza got a great chin. He did get busted up, had a nice blood clot mouse up underneath his eye. Had the other eye was pretty cut up, so he was banged and bruised up. Tszyu definitely had the harder punch. I felt like the first 4 rounds, Mendoza overall could outbox him, but he couldn't hurt him, and he couldn't put anything on him to keep him off. He was always in stalk mode, always in a predator mode. Brian Mendoza, the punches that I felt like, if he could have got his feet set and landed harder punches in the first 4 rounds, maybe he would have had a better second round. He was a little bit more committed to the body, but I just didn't see him, throwing out a lot of power shots. It was more of trying to fight defensively, and Tszyu was more of the stalker. I didn't see the greatest footwork from Tszyu, but he did show me the ability to cut off the ring and frame his guy up, and then land with very hard counter punches. So we did see the uppercut that he committed to that left his flank exposed. He got hit with a, sort of a blow that necessarily was right on the belt line, and he complained that it was a low blow. That was revealing. Also revealing was just, especially in comparison to the foot speed of like a Charlo. If Charlo was in there instead of Mendoza, this is Charlo before. This is in my mind the Charlo before the fight against Canelo, but the Charlo that was in there against a Brian Castano for the second time. I felt like that Charlo would have brought a better performance to the table against a Tim Tszyu. So in a way, I feel like Charlo would have been able to outbox Tim Tszyu. But I feel like with the decision that Charlo made, going up to fight Canelo and then coming back down, that to me puts the advantage into Tim Tszyu's position. Like I could see Jamal Charlo coming back down to fight Tim Tszyu and not being prepared, either from, you know what I'm saying, going up and coming down in weight cut, or just Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu, what I like about him is he comes prepared to get the job done. Charlo sometimes needs a second go at it. And it's the first time he might not come in as prepared. Second time he comes in more prepared and gets the job done. So him coming off of, Jamal Charlo coming off of a loss against Canelo, with so many people saying this and they teasing his nephews at school, and he has, you know, he just, his whole temperament kind of changed for the Canelo fight. For him to go back down and weight and to bring about the mentality that he would have to fight against somebody that's on the hunt, I just don't really see that happening. So I would give a lot of the leverage and a lot of the advantage right now to Tim Tszyu based on his performance against Mendoza, just with the momentum. And his style isn't so great that I feel like he would have just beat Jamal Charlo no matter what. I just feel like what he just showed, the path that he's on, I could see him edging out a fight against Jamal Charlo, especially with Jamal Charlo coming off of a loss and coming down in weight. We all know how that coming off of weight affected like a Roy Jones Jr., who has had way more just natural elite level skills above anybody boxing in today's era. Like, you know, Jamal Charlo has never shown the ability to be like a Roy Jones Jr. So Roy Jones Jr. going up in weight and coming back down, I know that's like the most overused example of going up and coming down in weight, but it still just stands out. Jamal Charlo goes up in 2 weight classes, gets defeated, you know, loses every round. That felt to me, if he came back down to his natural weight class, I wouldn't think that he would fight a guy like Tim Tszyu and come out victorious. It'll be a close fight. It'll probably end up in a draw like he did with the first Brian Castano fight, or he might just lose heart and just lose the fight and let himself, you know, get edged out, you know, because the mentality, like unless Jamal Charlo was elevated by the loss against Canelo, like that loss is going to, you know, reignite a fire in him that's going to make him come in better, which that is possible. Then if we see a best Jamal Charlo versus Tim Tszyu, that'd be a great fight. I'm sort of right now 50-50 because I honestly believe that Jamal Charlo's style, without the other factors of him like moving in weight and losing against Canelo, I'm looking like the prime version that I have seen of Jamal Charlo, I feel like still has some advantages over a guy like Tim Tszyu. But if I take everything into consideration, I look at Tim Tszyu as more of a threat. It's like Jamal Charlo is like a lion that has an injury. And when you're a lion that has an injury and you can't be at your best, you know, then somebody else that is at their best and is ferocious and hungry and on a war path like Tim Tszyu is, then they can go ahead and get you up out of the game, in my opinion. So Tim Tszyu definitely got like a good punch. Like, he doesn't work behind his jab as much. He doesn't have great footwork, but you know, he does have a great punch selection that's very accurate. When he throws a punch, he commits to a punch, he's pretty accurate and it's pretty flush. Like, you could just see the difference in the power between Tim Tszyu's punches versus Mendoza's punches. Like, Tim Tszyu punches definitely had a lot of effect when it comes to the power department. I still feel like some of his punch selection left him exposed here and there. Sometimes I felt like his hands were down a lot. He just had the mentality like where he hasn't been defeated and he's the conqueror. So you could see how confident he was. Even when he would make a mistake, he still would be able to, you know, regain those grounds with just his pressure and his presence and Just like, he wasn't taking no punishment. Like, he got out of the fight not even looking like he took a lot of scrapes and bumps and bruises, versus Mendoza's face was all battered up. So you can just tell the pedigree of Tszyu. He is just like his father, as far as he's just a tough guy. And it might not be flashy. It might not be, like a brilliant performance, but it is, like a blue collar, put on a hard hat. I heard this phrase 1,000 times, so I'm not saying anything, original here, but put on a hard hat, grab the lunch box, and then go to work, and then punch in, and then punch out, and get the job done. And I do appreciate and respect that style. It can take you a long way, especially if you tough, and you got a pedigree of a person that, can go into every fight without having to be fancy. Like, if you can just go in there and be a grinder and grind out a win, then that can take you a long way. As far as him against Canelo and him against Crawford, I feel like right now both of those guys would spell trouble for Tszyu. Canelo, I feel like he's has momentum behind him. 3 wins in a row. He's naturally bigger. He's just on a higher level as far as his experience. I don't think that's a good fight for Tszyu right now. And same thing with Terrence Bud Crawford. Although Terrence Bud Crawford, we don't know, but we have to assume that he would be able to bring his power with him and his abilities, his agility, all his ring generalship. I still feel like I give more of an edge to Terrence Bud Crawford over Tszyu at this time. Just with the boxing alone, I still felt like Mendoza, not necessarily a front runner, but that, like, he doesn't go the distance that much. Like, that was the first time him going to 12 rounds in a while. But just the first 4 rounds and his boxing technique, if I was to take him out of there and put in Terrence Bud Crawford's boxing technique, to me, as long as Terrence Bud Crawford's weight, power, and punch endurance traveled up to that weight class, I just couldn't see Tszyu coming out victorious against Terrence Bud Crawford or Canelo. But Charlo right now, only because of Jamal Charlo going up in weight, taking a loss, and coming back down, I feel like that just puts him in a bad position against Tszyu right now, and I would give more of an edge to Tszyu. So, we don't know what Jamal Charlo is going to do, because he just fought a big fight, took a loss, got a big paycheck. We just don't know where he's at right now as far as his vigor and his mentality, or how much wind he has behind his sails right now. He might just be kind of afloat in his career, trying to decide what he needs to do to, finish out his career. So I really can't even factor in Jamal Charlo with Tszyu. I just look at Tszyu. The fight that does make the most sense is Tszyu versus Jamal Charlo, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Jamal Charlo take a tune-up fight just to regain some confidence. And then if he fights somebody tough, and then I see him going in there with Tszyu, and his mind is more, recalibrated, more back to the Jamal Charlo that we knew when he was fighting against Jason Rosario's and et cetera, then I would say it's kind of a 50-50 fight. Lean towards, it's a 50-50 fight. I don't know. I would have to see the build up. I would have to see the training. I would have to do the interviews and hear the mentality, see what kind of condition. I would have to see what Jamal Charlo would look like after he drops down in weight. And, if he's that confident in his power, if his hand is healed, just all the things I feel like he has to deal with after losing against Canelo. I would have to kind of gauge how that affects him going into a fight. If he does like he did with Jorge Cota and then fought Tony Harrison, I can see his mentality being right. If he goes in there right now and fights a Tszyu, I think he loses. If he fights a tough guy and he knocks him out, and then I see him have a great training camp, and he's back to being, as like killer instincts, and everything is lined up physically and spiritually, then obviously that'd be a tough fight for Tszyu, kind of 50-50, and I would still lean towards Jamal Charlo a little bit, unless I seen Tszyu like really like showing even more. Like if I seen when they had the fight build up and Jamal Charlo looked intimidated by Tszyu when they face to face or when they're doing a conference. If Tszyu is getting the upper hand in the verbal combat, or if if they're doing all access and whenever they're in the same presence, if you see Jamal Charlo kind of tuck his tail a little bit, then I say, look, right now, Tszyu probably finna, dog walk Jamal Charlo. But that's videos for another day if we ever was to see that fight. My hat goes off to Brian Mendoza and Tszyu for putting on a great performance. Really just some great old school boxing with two tough guys. I feel like Tszyu is legit. He's a legit fighter. He's a legit threat. He still has some things to learn, as far as I did see some little weaknesses that were revealed that he can work on and be even better. And I feel like he does have the potential and ability to get better, but he has some great strengths. But I wouldn't recommend him to fight a Terrence Bud Crawford, and I wouldn't recommend him to go in there and fight Saul Canelo Alvarez. I feel like that's biting off too much to chew. You know what I'm saying? It's daring to be great, but I feel like, I would love to see a Tszyu and a Terrence Bud Crawford line up, but at the end of the day, what makes the most sense is Tszyu versus Jamal Charlo, and I am going to echo what Showbiz the Adult said. What makes the most sense for Terrence Bud Crawford, if we don't get the Errol Spence rematch, is to defend against the young Jaron Boots Ennis. Those are my thoughts. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments below. This is Nocturnal Thoughts. Salute, salute, salute. Signing out. And like I said again, my hat goes off to both fighters. And Tszyu, you know what I'm saying? He is a threat. He is a good fighter. And I feel like he has earned to, be separated from just being that nepotism factor of you just getting shots because of your name, the namesake of the Tszyu family. I feel like he's doing it justice, and he's, trailblazing his own path and fighting tough competitors, and his mentality is lined up with his skill level, and I think he's just going to keep improving and being a great boxer. Those are my thoughts. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments below. Salute, salute, salute.